What is up, guys? Live here with Pro Play Games, and we have our Android 17 deck. We took this to a couple store championships, actually, one of which misplayed super hard, was able to get kicked out of top 8. I think we finished like 9th or 10th on that one. And then the second store championship, we actually were able to kind of win, kind of not. Unfortunately, it was only top 4 for the the extra promos and the buys and stuff like that. But we got 5th place. We would have gotten 4th place if we didn't. If our tiebreaker actually got first instead of second. It was weird. They drew the last round, so unfortunate. But still, this deck super good and super fun. That's one of the main parts. A little bit of backstory. Me, Andrew Duvall, and Peter Catani were actually playing this, and we were going to play this at Tournament of Power, and we kind of just audibled last minute to Invoker, which we had a lot more reps with. It's just that we only played this guy maybe like a week, so we were just like, maybe it's a little bit too soon to just switch over something that we were playtesting already for weeks. So that's the only reason, but this deck is now finally seeing the light of day. Dehan kind of like got to it before we did, because I didn't have like a tournament to play this at until just recently, other than the the day-long TOP event, which we would have ran this at. But I digress. Leader is Android 17. Very powerful. It's out of the new set 9. Really cool part about this is that it is another Universe 7 deck, so it's similar. You're going to see a lot of similar pieces to Invoker. On the front side, when it attacks leader card, draw a card. So it's inherently always going to draw no matter what on the front side. And you actually have the ability to draw again. So this can essentially be like a Surge Goku, where Surge Goku attacks, draws 2, makes you discard 1. This essentially does the same thing, but in a different sequencing. This attack, draw 1, and then you can discard once per turn, so you can do it before or after, whatever. Discard a U7, draw a card. So effectively, you're seeing 2 new cards every single time, and you're pitching one of those. One of those must be a U7. That's the only downside. So it's a normal Awakened Leader. It's no Surge, no Wish, nothing crazy like that. Just 4 or less life, untap 1, draw 1. Pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. You really want to be on the backside, though, as soon as possible. Android 17, Universal Guardian. And this one on the backside, no matter what, when he attacks, draws a card. So very good. The upside on these leaders versus Surge leaders is that you're still getting card advantage on the back without having to use your 2 total activations. So you have that, and then the second part, which is the main reason why we play him, is for 1 red and 1 blue. You can choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, put it back to their hand, and then choose up to 1 Universe 7 card in your drop area and add it to your hand. So it's inherently, a +1. Your opponents are not losing any type of advantage, but it is very good for the tempo. I did play against a Broly lead, like old school Broly lead, like green Broly chain, and this just completely annihilates them because they go to 8 and then you put the 8 back to their hand. So unfortunately, decks like that aren't very common anymore, and you normally don't want to put back anything back to their hand, because like an Ape or like a Cooler or an Arrival card that you just don't want them to trigger again. So that's not as relevant, but being able to buy back Master Roshi as your negate, being able to buy back Super Combo to draw or Super Combo to untap is very useful, and buying back like Gogeta pieces and things like that are all very cool. Then the second part didn't happen as much as I wanted it to. It did happen a lot more with our first version of the deck, but this version of the deck wasn't as consistent at being able to get this online, which obviously just depends on which way you build this guy. But if you have 9 or more multicolor extras or Universe 7 cards in your drop area, it gets plus 5k, double strike, and critical. It's an activate main, so you got to activate it every single time to do this. And if you overroam, which obviously we're not running much overroam, if at all any, it's going to be dead from there on after. So pretty cool effect, pretty nifty. It was okay. I think we have a count of like 24 or something like that, different cards that we can get in our drop area, and all we need is 9 to really activate this guy. So pretty powerful. It's one of the best back leader sides after like a Gogeta, which is why we went with a primary Gogeta line, but it's still very good at grinding out the game because the ability to buy back and out resource your opponent in the late game. So as far as the main deck, and for the main deck, before we get started, this is the YouTube version. If you guys want to see the uncensored a little bit, we're going to talk about a little bit more like what the strategy of the deck is, how your turn 1, 2, 3, what your game plan normally is, and things like that, along with the sideboard. If you guys are on the Patreon, make sure you check it out in the description below. Of course, it helps us continue to produce this type of content and really make sure that you guys are ready for the competitive season as soon as it comes back. So without further ado, Black Smoke Dragon. This is my favorite secret rare. Not necessarily the best secret rare, it's just my favorite secret rare. I really like the being able to Gogeta my opponent and then make them discard the rest of their hand. Really cool, especially with the leader. It's never going to get them back in the game because now you got Gogeta, your hand was discarded, and now I have a double strike critical, so you're never seeing any cards. That's ideally the Cinderella story, the Cinderella line of play. That of course never happens like that in playtesting a lot of the times because your opponent obviously is playing a lot of unfair cards as well, such as Gogeta. And speaking of Gogeta, it seems like every deck is kind of playing him at this moment. Not to say that that's 100% right, but this deck kind of does it the best, and this is what initially got us the idea of like, hey, why aren't people playing Gogeta anymore? Like, the card didn't get any worse, right? So this 17 really led us to like, oh man, Gogeta in U7, really cool, very powerful. Obviously, with the U7 leader, you can look at their hand, take any card. But with this Gogeta, just being able to out-resource your opponent because your backside is just so strong on Android 17 is just really, really cool. So Gogeta, not effectively like our only win con, only way to win the game. It just really is an added bonus to what the deck already does really well with. 2 Path to Greatness. This is the only yellow card that we play. It's off color because it's the only 19... the 19 power. It's the only same attack power as like a Vegeta that we're playing. It essentially, and it's a U7, so you can discard it to the front side. Being able to discard him or just have him as a count for the back is just huge. So it's a very easy pitch, especially after we already used it or saw a Gogeta fusion. After that, he's not really dead in that aspect. Next, we play 3 SSB Vegeta Inspired Technique. This is what makes the fusion easy. 19 and 19. Why do we only play 2 Path to Greatness? Because Path to Greatness only really has 2 applications. You're never really casting him. SSB Vegeta, you are casting him in this version of the deck in certain matchups. Remember, this deck is it gives you a little bit different lines of play against every different type of deck, which is great. I mean, there's decks where I'm just never gonna land the Vegeta, and I know that, so I play it appropriately. He's also a U7, so you can discard him, and he's multicolor. Great energy, which is normally what this deck wants. It just wants its multicolor energy. Next, for the Gogeta, to make it worth running, and even not worth running, honestly, the Tyranny cost can probably be a 3 of in this deck. Being able to just draw 2 for 2 is insanely powerful. Being able to have this as a multicolor charge for turn 1 or turn 2. This is one of the few decks that can actually charge multicolor turn 2 without really needing to worry. Is huge, and if your opponent has 11 or more cards in hand, is actually pretty relevant. Next for our Invoker package is the Emperor's Death Beam. I was able to play this a few times just for 3 energy, which is fine. It's a great removal spell. It's spot removal. Great against other Invoker decks. They really have no response to this, so being able to just kill their Invoker is great. And of course, being able to off the chance of getting it for 1 energy along with Royal Condemnation when having an Invoker out is even better. So very good cards. It's definitely something that you want to be able to utilize if you can, but if not, it's there for energy, and it's also there to be in the drop area so that you can actually look at the top card of your deck. You can peek at the top card of your deck at any point. 2, we're in this together. Just border removal. This version of the deck doesn't have as bad of a Jiren matchup or as bad as a board control matchup as other decks, just because of other pieces that we're playing in the deck. But being able to have access to this card, this could also give us more attrition, being able to buy this card back whenever we need it. It's just good. It's just good to have access to when you need that line, or when you need that when you're going that route with this deck. It's very powerful. Next is our check lands. Check lands, super powerful. I really like this one particularly because I'm able to play this against like the Piccolo or any decks that just are like protect the Gohan, which Piccolo normally does. They like sell Kamehameha their Gohan so you can't kill it. Just being able to get it off the board with this is great, all the while maintaining pressure on your opponent. It's just extremely powerful. Of course, the energy exhaust is great too. Later down in the game, when you don't want to play tap lands anymore, you can just immediately use this as energy. So all around, fantastic card. It did well, and I think the count of 3 was perfect. Don't want to see too many of those. Next is Hercule and Majin Buu, Friends Forever. I'm friends forever with this card. This card is so good. Honestly, it's one of the main reasons why this deck was actually even on our radar for the most part, because being able to put back cards that you've already used, like Master Roshi Negate, Vegeta Negate, the Coolers, Topo, like you can put back all those cards. Those are all cards that are valid targets. Andrew was actually kind of made me play. I wanted to play 3, but he was kind of like, you should probably play 2, because we needed to make some space for cards. But after he realized, because I knew the whole time, after he realized that you can get back any red or blue card, like it's not energy restrictive, he was like, oh yeah, this card's insane. So being able to draw a card and just being able to replay any of your powerful, arrivals or negates is just great. The only downside about this card is it's got 19 versus 20 attack, which is unfortunate, but not the worst. So that's one of our best arrival cards, but the best arrival card is Cooler. Like, there's nothing that this guy can't do. This guy can take down threats, secret rares, you name it. Being able to target 2 different threats at the same time is normally one of the most powerful plays that you can do, especially if you keep it with other, like, what you want to do is just like combo 1 Beerus or combo 1 multicolor card, and then play like 2 Coolers and a Majin Buu, or like 3 Coolers, and that's ideally the best, because you're putting on a lot of pressure for very little energy, and you're kind of just like instantly killing like 2 or 3 different threats. So you're getting a lot of value, and Cooler is just great. I mean, the pressure that he puts on is a great way of closing games in a lot of ways that we close games with the deck when we're not going the Gogeta route. Next for the super combos is 3 Beerus. I kind of like the 3. I think 3 is fine. It was 2 and 2 at the beginning, but this was something that we changed immediately. Well, I changed kind of like after seeing how powerful being able to arrival for just one free, essentially, like you don't have to pay 1 energy for this multicolor, and you don't have to pay 2 cards. So not having to pitch a red and a blue to arrival your Cooler, like pitching 2 cards, being able to just pitch 1 card or super combo with 1 card, to just instantly arrival is fantastic, especially on the defensive end when you're and I did use him a lot on the offensive end, just to try to push Coolers on my opponent, and that's still fine because you're still getting this NK power, you're still getting those required red and blue cards in there to be able to arrival. It's just very, very important. So we played 3 of those and 1 of the Backbone of Universe 7. Now both of these are U7 cards, so you can actually both buy them back with the backside of the leader, which is great. For the off chances that you do need to push on your turn and you're not gonna, and you don't really care about arrivaling, even this in a Master Roshi can arrival if you really need to, but being able to draw a card, just having access to that, is just great, especially because, like I said, you can get it back with your leader, so whenever you need it to like push offensively, you get that back. If you need a defensive super combo, you get back the Beerus, but 90% of the time you're just doing Beerus. Just because this deck, unlike Invoker, actually has combo power, so you can actually push for damage pretty easily. Next is going to be for the best negate right now, which is Master Roshi Universe 7 United. It's just 1 blue, very simple. It's a Universe 7, which is the main reason why we have 4 of, because this is usually our early pitch target. We just want to cycle it and keep drawing cards, keep the train moving, and we'll see what we need to see, because we are seeing 2 cards every turn. So awesome card. Being able to buy it back also with the Majin Buu, fantastic. Really love it. Next for our 1 energy negates. No, but this guy reads 3, yeah, but his ability makes him a 1 energy negate, which is really powerful. Just being able to have that for little to no cost when you have 4 extra cards in your drop area. Now this doesn't require multicolor extra cards, like this can be any type of extra cards, so you can have Bean, D-Magic, things like that. Now this deck doesn't have as many extra cards as a normal Invoker does, but that's fine, because in a normal Invoker, it's usually hard, I mean, unless you're on the front side, to pitch the extra cards. With this guy, Beans, D-Magics, being able to, play Tyranny's Cost on 2, those are all things that get to the drop proof relatively easily. So the card wasn't a problem. Also, the big reason why we played 4 is because it's 1500 Vegeta. So talking about that Vegeta, we wanted to have targets for that Vegeta. So we did play 1 copy of Ultra Instinct Sun Goku Battle Mastery. Now we only played 1 copy of this. Now we were never really casting this. I did kill my opponent with this because it was 2 energy, and I was able to do a big line of play where it required me to have a 2 energy card that I can play. But the main reason of this is because 1500 Goku. Honestly, if you have access to the other one, the draft box Goku, I 100% advise you to play that other Goku. I did not have access to that card after me and Justin Rios did really well with our U7 version of that Uneasy Alliance on Goku. That card went to like $50, $60. It was kind of impossible for me to just not sell it at that point, so we got rid of him. But yeah, if you do have that 2 energy Goku, by all means, I would play at least 2 copies. It's definitely super powerful, much better than this card, but this is kind of like the budget version. It was usually being pitched anyways, so it was okay to play this one. But for the other 1500 Gokus, and the reason why we played 4 of these is because we're playing this card a lot of the times. We played less Gokus because we weren't playing the Gokus as much. This is the only other 1500 Goku that makes sense for you to play if you want to go to the 1500 Union Fusion, or what's it called? Fusion, whatever. The Fusion for Gogeta. When you have the Fusion from the hand, they have to be the same power. So this is essentially your only other 1500 Goku other than the Uneasy Alliance on Goku, which 100% I would probably play at least 2. I would definitely still play this Goku though, and my reasoning here is because as you've seen with other versions of this deck, like Daehan was playing Intensifying Power Trunks because he wanted to awaken against Piccolo, or just being able to just like start your turn at 5 and your opponent's like, oh yeah, my opponent doesn't play any Self-Awakening, and then you land one of these is huge. It allows for a big turn, it gives you some card advantage, and it puts a pretty beefy guy on board. He becomes 20k, and he untaps you one during your opponent's turn. So super good. The only problem with him is that he's not a Universe 7, so you're not going to be able to discard him, and he doesn't count towards your count in the drop. Only downside, but shout out to Andrew Duvall on this one. This card is definitely, I would definitely play at least 2 of, I think, if you're not playing any other Self-Awakeners, because he really puts in a lot of work. And then next to that, we played 2 Topo, Righteous Aid. Topo is really good. Honestly, this can be a 3 of, but there's just no space in the deck, so we actually main 2, and the other 2 are sideboard. So definitely just Topo. Being able to buy it back with Majin Buu too also makes it so that you don't have to play that high number, but definitely at least 2 in the deck. It just lets you buy that extra turn. If you're going that Gogeta route, it makes your turn 4 pretty easy to live through. It's just good. Not even against, like, obviously it's good against like Majin Buu, but it's just good against almost every other mid-range deck. It essentially makes them pass a turn. I did get countered a few times on this card. Like, my opponent played Swift Retaliating, Cooler, and Jiren, but I was still able to, have a D-Magic on the back. Speaking of D-Magic, just hands down best negate in the game. I don't even think it comes close. D-Magic is just, it does everything you want and more. So, just not really much to say about that card. And then 3 Senzu and I'm not a fan of Senzu. I think you guys remember my deck profile in U7. I don't think this card is needed at all in U7. I think you definitely do need it in this version because a rivaling does cost energy. It's not free. So being able to like Beerus off on your opponent's turn, and then like make that 1 energy into Bean, which will make it 2, and then being able to rival 2 threats right there is just insane. Bean in combination with that Beerus super combo is just ridiculous, and this deck also needs more extra cards because you don't play as many extra cards, so you need extra cards in the drop for your Vegeta negate. So that's pretty much it. That is the 50 card deck that took an overall like X1 finish, the last Chop Championship, and then the second one, the first Chop Championship, I think I finished like X2 or something like that, and I shouldn't have lost one of those games, and I should have made that top 4, but yeah, that's pretty much the deck, guys. If you guys want to see more explanation and kind of like a play-by-play of like how the beginning turns are supposed to go and the different routes that you can go, definitely consider checking out the Patreon. That's going to be a long, lengthy video, much longer than this one, and we'll go over the sideboard too because I didn't want to make this video too long. So thank you guys again for supporting the channel, checking it out. Make sure you guys keep an eye on the Patreon, and make sure you guys keep an eye on our online tournaments starting very soon. If you aren't part of the Pro Play Games Dragon Ball Super Facebook group, I definitely suggest you joining that for any type of discussion about the game, spoilers, and of course our online tournament series, which will be debuting in about a week or so. Thank you guys again for watching the video. Till next time.